Do you ever find yourself thinking about the Constitution? I know it's a weird question, and I never did. I never really thought about it much at all until recently. And then recently, 8 years ago, I started like really thinking about the Constitution a lot because, it's in the news all the time. What will the Supreme Court rule? The Constitution says this. This is going on. This is going on. And I just started realizing, like, as all these court cases came up, and we're constantly seeing these new issues that you think you know what's going to happen, and then judges rule in different ways. You think, why would a judge rule a certain way when this seems so obvious? And why is this case coming up again? And how is someone allowed to appeal something over and over and over again when it's already been decided? And don't these lower courts mean anything? And you start to realize just this one document that gave birth to a nation, and you think about the men that wrote this thing and the work that went into it. If you've never looked up like the creating of the creation of the Constitution, you really should, because I think it was Madison who was kind of the architect of it, who did years of research on democracies. Remember, this was really the first pure attempt at I wouldn't say it's a full democracy. Ours is a representative democracy, but it was the first real attempt to run a nation this way, in the way that we were doing it. So it was big. We call it the grand experiment, but that's true, and it really was an experiment. And it's been on my mind so much, and you start to think about, if this is our guiding document, if this is the principle that we have, then why is it constantly under attack? And if you go back and you look at some of the happenings and the writings and the worries, and some people are like, oh, this is just going to turn into another. Is this a king? Are we going to end up with another monarchy? What's this going to be? There was a lot of confusion and talk about what this would be, and then we just kind of went for it. This group of men, which were all privileged and landowners, but when you think of the privilege that they had, and then they decided, let's do something better. Let's do something that the people can be in charge of their own lives, because a lot of these, they still have the feelings and the echoes of monarchy from all over Europe, and they knew that the tyranny that ultimately comes from that. And so this was a chance to try this grand experiment. And when you look at that and the risk that these men put into creating a document and then saying to a tyrant, saying to a king, no, you stay over there. This is ours. And they knew they'd have to fight, and they did, and we've been fighting for it ever since. But there was a moment when the delegates were walking out, and they had made this decision, and I guess the paper was signed. And I think it was Ben Franklin was asked, what do we have? What'd you guys do in there? And it was, he said something along the lines of, we have a republic if we can keep it. And I think from that day forward, the Constitution has been under attack, because there are people that have wealth and power, and they feel like because they have that, they should have more. And if you think about it, that little statement I just made, wealthy people thinking they should have more, is the basis of every single struggle that this nation has had since the birth of our country. Civil rights, women's rights, healthcare, all these things, the struggle for all of them to keep them down is to make sure that if people don't become too powerful, because if they become too powerful, then these people aren't special. And if everyone has rights, then no one can be special. And it's a weird thing, because you think, who needs to be that special? What's going on that we can't all have a part of that? We can't all be invested in taking care of this land and making sure that it continues on into the future. You would think we would all want that, but no, for some reason we don't. And so the real struggle in this nation, and I guess the only reason I'm saying this out loud is that I want this video, as I'm talking to you, I'm kind of documenting this for myself, because I think about this stuff so much, and I don't want to. I don't want to be obsessed. I don't want to think about the news. I want to, I make videos for this channel that are about things that are important to me, and they're usually environmental things, because I think we've certainly lost our way in the environment as we've on what the environment is, as we've created a separation between the way humans live and the way we were meant to live, which is in nature. We've created a separate thing. We have developed areas which are supposed to be kind of superior or next level, and then we have nature, which is like, oh God, nature, no, ooh, a bug. But our cities are not sustainable, and once you understand that can never be sustainable, even if just based on the amount of waste that we create, you realize how valuable nature is. And nature is a bunch of systems that have been around for billions of years, that took billions of years to create. That weird noise you're hearing is my little dog Coco walking with her nails across the wood floor. Thank you. What really bothers me is as we see this small group, and it's a tiny billionaires, oligarchs, whatever you want to call them, they're a small group of people, but their influence is so outsized compared to the people. But all of our decisions in government are supposed to be based on the people. But it's not, because money is so powerful. But money is not supposed to be more powerful than a vote. But our representatives, as soon as they're elected, they become swayed by the needs of CEOs and oligarchs and billionaires. And we seem to have accepted that to our great demise. And I think if you could take the founding fathers and bring them to right now, I think the one thing that you would see, that the one thing that they would be terrified of is our surrender to a right to privacy. Without a right to privacy, you do not have freedom. There's no such thing as freedom and no privacy. It's absurd to think that you can be free and not be private. And every single day you get emails or you go to a website and all of those things. We've updated our terms, and all of those things are you giving up a little more of your privacy. The cell phone that I'm shooting on right now, it is the most significant invasion of privacy imaginable. And it'll be worse tomorrow than it is today. And as those people gain more information and gain more sway over our lives and are embedded into our lives more, we're seeing the erosion of democracy. And this outsized influence by billionaires, because I remember, when was the first billionaire that you were aware of? Well, for me, it was obviously Bill Gates, and then Steve Jobs and Trump, although he was never that rich. He was just always talking about being rich. But these people, and they pop up in media, they pop up in Congress, and lawmakers seek their opinion. Why? Why would anyone want the opinion of a billionaire? Why would anyone, what value does Mark Zuckerberg have to society? What value does Jeff Bezos have to society? I don't care what he thinks about anything. It's irrelevant. He's not an expert in anything except selling things at a huge discount that destroys companies and business owners and takes advantage of workers. And I mean, look at Walmart. Walmart is the biggest offender in the world. It was the company that basically destroyed downtown America across the entire nation. They use our welfare system to line their own pockets. They are somehow legally allowed to pay people so little that they can sign up for welfare, and they encourage people to sign up for welfare. Imagine working a full-time job and being on welfare. That we've forgotten how absurd that is. We've accepted those things, and yet we still say we're the richest nation in the country, but it's just where the richest people live, or the richest nation in the world, sorry. It's just where the richest people in the world live. We don't have that amount of wealth. We have an extreme amount of poverty and this borderline of living on the cusp everywhere. And so I just wanted to, I know this is going longer than I wanted to, but I just want to mention a couple of things, because we're forgetting to be offended. We're forgetting to stand up and say, no, we're not doing that. We've forgotten that we have a voice, and there's only one place left where we can use that. And I don't think any of us are paying attention to that. But I want you to think about one thing real quick. I want you to think about tax cuts for the wealthy. Now, when I just said that, you knew exactly what I meant. You've heard the phrase, you hear it all the time, tax cuts for the wealthy. That should be the most absurd statement that a person can make, especially a politician or a businessman. Tax cuts for the wealthy. No, it should be tax cuts for the middle class or tax cuts for the poor. But this whole myth of trickle-down economics was kind of thrown out there for us, that if we're really good to the rich people, they'll be good to everyone else. But we've allowed that to be said so often. It's like all of these morons, they say stuff over and over and over again, and until if you say it long enough, people will think it's true. And I think where we are now, it's a special kind of stupid in that if you say it long enough, people will just stop paying attention. And I see us doing that. And that's one reason I'm making this video. I just think I can't let myself become numb to these things. And I also can't sit online and post comments all day. That is so pointless. So I want to make the video not just to start a discussion, which would be amazing, but for my own sanity, to post something and be like, I can't be the only person who's thinking like this. Because as I look around and I hear these things like tax cuts for the wealthy, and I realize like all of these really significant problems that we're dealing with, healthcare, specifically women's healthcare or minority healthcare, or job security. But every year right around Christmas, giant companies just fire hundreds of thousands of people every year. And we've just accepted that. Like, that's okay. That's just business. It's just business. It's not personal, is one of the biggest bullshit phrases ever made. If you've been fired, it feels pretty damn personal. Your life is suddenly full of struggle and chaos and fear. And this country, because it's now falling so deeply under this influence of capitalism, we've just accepted that, and we have to stop accepting it. I'm not promoting violence. Americans have become so passive, and we're so used to being just stomped on. We're so used to saying, oh, politicians, they always lie. They're only going to lie if we let them lie. We have to hold them accountable for everything. Think about this right now. There are people our president is more than likely a pedophile. We know he's a liar. He lies every single day of his entire life. We know he's a con man. We know that he's bilking the country for billions of dollars. And we're just like, oh yeah, but that's kind of him. That's Trump being Trump. Why are we accepting any of this? And it's not just Trump. Trump's just a symptom. The problem are the Peter Thiels of the world and the Elon Musk, who talks about populating Mars. We're not going to Mars. That's the dumbest thing in the world. Remember recently when we all treated Musk like he was someone intelligent? Well, he's clearly not. We're not going to populate Mars. He's talking about just getting contracts so he can continue to send rockets up while he's making billions of dollars with government contracts. We've fallen for all of these lies of corporations, but we do have a way to fight back, I think. And the weakness of corporations, the one little portal on their Death Star, is really about as powerful, and that's boycotts. And I know we've all lived through the times, and no gas Tuesday or no whatever it was, but we could never get organized, and it was always like, you do it for one day, who cares? And how do you go without having gas? Fossil fuel companies make fun of everybody for that. Nobody's cut plastic. We're poisoning the planet with plastic, and no one cares because they've ingrained it in our lives so much that we can't go on without it, which isn't true. We absolutely can. We did for hundreds of thousands of years, and of course we could do it again. Of course we could. The ability to be focused and disciplined in a boycott. If we can find a way to do it one company at a time, to send a message. In the example, the reason I know this is true is Target was hit really hard recently, and some other companies too. And that was just with a fraction of the people paying attention. Our votes are not as powerful anymore. But a boycott could be. Because if people could get organized enough and disciplined enough to really boycott a company that is abusing workers, just imagine if no one bought from Amazon for 3 months. And I'm not necessarily saying target Amazon. I'm also not saying not target Amazon. I don't know. I'm not the leader of any group. But we need to solve that problem. We need to be the founders, like the founders, to solve this problem, because that republic that we have, if we can keep it, it's under tremendous pressure right now. The Supreme Court, when they ruled against the Colorado Supreme Court and said that yes, an insurrectionist can be on the ballot, that should have sent shockwaves to the nation. I think people need to force politicians to create new systems. We can't wait every 4 years to do things. We need a way to remove them instantly. A recall system that can take people out of an office that they're in because we put them in office. We have to be able to remove them. We need to set up a standard that says no one is going to take outside money. You run your election, you run your election. You don't need that much money anymore due to social media and that type of access. And those things need to be made to be fair. And right now, every day we wake up, we're seeing voting and election rights are under attack every day. That should have ended a long time ago. We shouldn't be having conversations about fair elections anymore. That should have been solved. And I get you don't want to replace people all the time, but if you do it once and you have a system for doing it, I don't think you'd have to do it very many times, because then the people that get elected know what their job is. This video has gone on for a long time. I apologize if you watched any of this. I am grateful. I just wanted to kind of say this out loud for me, because I think we're all thinking these things, but we're getting so beat down by this stuff that it's just really difficult to not feel overwhelmed. But we have all the mechanisms at our fingertips. The founding fathers, despite their flaws, and they had them, which is what makes the document so amazing. Despite their flaws, they created a remarkable document to build a nation on. And we have watched it be eroded and downgraded and minimized for far too long. I leave you with this. We can't continue to be divided. As people, the effort to keep us divided is so intense. And I get it. I feel that way all the time too. It's easy to look around and say, why do these people think that? What's wrong with them? Don't they see they're being manipulated? But that's me falling into the same game too. And I realize if you've ever taken the time to talk to anybody, we all agree on everything. The fact is, we are all on the same team. We're being lied to keep divided. And we have to stop that. We have to figure out a way and demand a way. And it has to be more than voting. We have to be so careful with how we use our dollars. And we have to punish companies that aren't willing to listen. It's not about being a liberal. It's not about being a conservative. It's about being a human. We need to demand the things that are accessible to us. We need to stop being okay with terrible housing markets and unfair financial practices. We can't accept those anymore. We can't just say that's the way it is. And our dollars have power. The dollars of poor people have a lot of power. Where you shop can change the world. So I don't know how to get that organized. Maybe one of you do. Maybe someone already is. I know there are groups that put boycotts together, but there's got to be something stronger than that. We have to demand that politicians come up with a mechanism to get bad actors out of there. You shouldn't be allowed to stay as an elected official if you're violating and not honoring the people that put you there. It's like any job in the world. If you get hired to do something and you go in and do the opposite of that or sell out that company, you get fired. I don't think that's asking too much. I doubt anyone's still watching at this point, but if you are, I hope you just have the best day today, and I hope you can stay positive through all this, and I hope we can all find a way to support each other. Thank you.